Hi everyone. So for this presentation, I'm going to be talking about Wahhabism. So what is Wahhabism? Wahhabism is a movement that dates back to the 18th century, and it focuses on the reform of the Islamic faith caused by the presence of innovations over time to different sects and groups interpreting their religion in their own way. So basically what it means is that these people believe in the literal interpretation of the Quran, which is their version of the Holy Bible. And strict Wahhabis are people who believe that if you don't practice their form of Islam, then you're seen as the enemy, basically. So the person who founded this organization was a man named Muhammad ibn Abd al-Wahhab. So the focus of this movement is centered on the focal point of concentrating power into traditional institutions within Saudi Arabia, primarily the royal family. So basically, they want to infuse or implement their teachings into like the lawmaking process and other like traditional institutions. So Muhammad al-Wahhab, he was an accomplished theologian and founder of the Wahhabi movement. He received his education in the holy city of Medina, but he was cast out of his home city for his extremist views that fit his vision of what traditional Islam is or was. And in his exile, he allied with Ibn Saud to make a stronghold of the country of Arabia. So the followers of this movement are called Unitarians. So the Latin word uni, which means one. So the basis of their belief is that Allah is the unitary entity that is to be worshipped in the Islamic faith, according to the pronunciations of the Prophet Muhammad. So any teaching that kind of deviates away from their teaching, like for example, worshiping religious leaders or dedicating a religious monument to anyone other than Allah, is seen as like it's not allowed, so it would be outlawed. So some of their military campaigns include occupation of Najd and attack on Karbala and occupation of Mecca and Medina. So whenever they occupied Najd, so Muhammad al-Wahhab set sights to establish a stronghold within Central Arabia. So his connection to the Saudi dynasty, namely the ruler Ibn Saud, helped the consolidation of this area. And even after his death, the doctrine still has a really strong influence in this area. And secondly, so the attack on Karbala. So this was one of the bloodiest conflicts in Islamic history. So basically, villagers in Karbala were gathering for a religious observance of a leader by the name of Hussein. So they gathered in his burial site, and then 10,000 plus Wahhabi soldiers literally just came in and raided the city and plundered all the treasures and killed anyone in town that they came across. And then lastly is the occupation of Mecca and Medina. So in 1805, the Wahhabi forces, they gained territory through most of Arabia and even parts of Iraq. And they also had several interactions with the Ottoman Empire, and they tried to disrupt their trade routes and influence in the Middle East. And the Ottomans suppressed the Wahhabi forces, but the Wahhabi movement resurfaced again in 1824. So their current span of influence, they have over 5 million followers of the doctrine, and Wahhabism is spread out among several countries around the world. Wahhabi Islam is now believed to be consolidated by the establishment of several terrorist organizations over time, including Boko Haram and Al-Qaeda. And currently, the goal of this doctrine being brought to global scope by this organization is basically they want to disrupt Western institutions and establish traditional Islamic law within political systems. So some of the successes of Wahhabism, so they maintained control of the country of Arabia for at least 2 centuries, and they had some success in spreading Sharia law, which has led to the destabilizing of several regimes throughout Asia, and the amount of followers amassed grows at an exponential rate. And they also provided ample support of terrorist organizations reaching disenfranchised individuals in several countries. And so some of the failures of Wahhabism is that the Wahhabi strongholds have been under the control of other rulers since their conception. Oh my god. And several key leaders over time for the movement have been killed in the wars they had over time. And lastly, several countries like Indonesia and Malaysia have been democratized and resisted the establishment of Sharia law. So what that means is that like some of the countries who have predominantly like Muslim populations, like Indonesia, they don't implement Sharia law. There's a small section of Indonesia that does, but for the most part, they don't implement any like that kind of law. So, in conclusion, Wahhabism is a doctrine that focuses on the return of traditional values, and they reject anything that deviates from the traditional views of the Islamic faith and teaching. Their influence across the world and status as an organization has been consolidated both by royal families, military history, and terrorist organizations. And lastly, the Wahhabi doctrine is now the focal point to establishing several laws in countries, which incites violence against innocent people and dismantling Western influence on a global scale. Thank you.